Well, we're here at the Stars and Stones Winter Forum up at Bury St Edmunds. I'm Edmund Marriage, and I've got with me Konstantin Pavlidis. And Konstantin has just given us an absolutely magnificent lecture, although he mustn't have told me quite right that I shouldn't call it a lecture. We're calling it a presentation, putting forward knowledge, and I'll let him explain the basic points of the message that he was putting across this morning, because I believe it is going to make an enormous difference to the education of every person, child in particular, young people in the future, if people can adopt what in reality past knowledge which we've forgotten.
Yes. Fundamentally, what I have observed is that if we harken back to old practices, which really is about seeing the world in a comparative, which effectively becomes a separative type of process, meaning how strong something is compared to some weakness, black compared to white, positive compared to negative, feminine compared to masculine. Such processes in our minds and such differentiation, although it may be prized in a more competitively oriented approach to perceiving life, creates separation. And in separation, in fact, there's weakness, because there's disassociation at worst and disintegration at best. Until we get to see how much of the strong is in the weak, how much of the black is in the white, how much of oneself is in someone or something else, be it an animal or an inanimate being, it's very difficult to begin to see how we are a part of everything that we're existing in, first in society, secondly in nature, thirdly on the planet, and fourthly the planet as a part of a solar system which we're clearly aware exists, and part of a greater universe. If those realities are shared with us and we're informed of that type of interconnectivity, either at school or by other people, we may hear it in our minds and nod our heads in confirmation, but it's very hard to really make sense of what that means, i.e. we're part of a bigger picture, not just about our own personal interests or that of our friends, family, and our close circuit of interactive communal or societal members. Therefore, what it's saying in a nutshell is every single thought, emotion, word, or action that comes out of us will affect not only our external environment, but has repercussions on far greater levels than we could possibly imagine at this stage. What I see, you had talked about the crux of the presentation. It's about the science, art, metaphysics interface. What does that mean? Most of us have a perception of science as being white coat laboratory workers or people who sit in a so-called objective manner trying to observe some kind of phenomena and making sense of it by instrumentation, experimentation, or a process that separates them from what's going on. Because science, the way we perceive it today and the way it has come to fundamentally operate in society, is supposed to be objective. Perhaps this is a reaction to the very powerful Cartesian development over the past 300 years, because over the past probably now 700 or 800 years, especially in Western Europe, the Christian religion, or religion in general in Europe, has had a very strong effect over the way in which we were allowed to perceive the world order, the cosmic order. So I see it as a throwing out the baby with the bathwater situation, and we're trying to steer away from having too much control from religion over our minds, and trying to develop almost like an adolescent growing up and saying, well, this is my way of seeing life, this is my identity, and this is my chosen path of how I will interact with the world at large, as opposed to being told that I must follow it in this way, otherwise I'll be damned to hell, and if I'm not damned to hell by God, I'll get burnt anyway.
That's right, because we have this concept really of needing to bring out the best in people,
yes,
and not the beast in people.
Yeah.
And this secular pursuit of knowledge and free will, which our ancient Druid culture is more relevant today than ever before, the truth before the world. And my feeling, and the terminology I use because I like it, is that we should be supporting those people who deploy the benevolent will in the good management of the planet. In other words, the master craftsmen who really know what they're talking about should be working towards getting everybody in these communities, far better communities than we have at the moment, so that we not only sort out the science more effectively, but we also really make sure that we have the best people assisting in getting as many people as possible in the deployment of resources in the good management of the planet, because it now becomes absolutely crucial with the population levels we have. It also becomes absolutely crucial because of our total failure to manage wildlife and manage nature as we should be doing it. We've forgotten so many lessons and best practice from the past, and also because we are now facing economic meltdown, social meltdown, crises of all kinds. We need to have constructive dialogue with everybody so that we don't have excuses to fight them. We need every possible excuse to get the best out of them and make friends with them. And that's just a very crude, simple summary of my view of the world at the moment. And you enlighten me totally with your detailed approach in looking at all the different facets which need to be dealt with. And it's not complicated. It's something which is achievable. It means that our educational system can be reconstructed and that we can win and deal with the issues and problems that we have in hand.
Agreed.
So can you add to that?
Indeed. Firstly, I think there's a great misunderstanding of the term education. Its Latin roots tell us it's about educing or drawing out from an individual qualities and talents which we, that person that would be a teacher or a mentor, perceive as being positive and worthy of not only drawing out but cultivating and enhancing. Now that presupposes that the individual who is the teacher stroke mentor has sufficient development within themselves to see what those qualities, those positive qualities are, and also the skills to develop them to a high enough level so that the individual concerned can go out into life and be effective, efficient, effective and balanced, and find within themselves harmony, not just with regard to a perception of themselves, but actually with nature and life. Fundamentally, what I see is we have two forms of education. One is formal education, which we receive in institutions, and we have non-formal education, which we receive as a result of life. It starts with home. The first contact a newborn baby has with its mother is the beginning of non-formal education. The socializing patterns thereafter, the ability to relate to family members, environment, and space in general, and thereafter communities and societies. All of this stems from what we call, or fits into the category of non-formal education, because we're not formalizing anything. We're creating a space through which the individual can actually receive stimuli from their external environment and learn to respond to that stimulus in a phenomenological way, meaning it's the phenomenon rather than the form. It's not predisposed, like I will do this to you because I expect that result. Like Pavlov's dog. It's a phenomenon that we see when a bell is rung, a dog salivates because it now knows. If you associate feeding the dog with ringing the bell, the dog starts salivating because there's an expectation. Take the food away, ring the bell, the dog's salivating, no food. So we're responding to programmed expectations. This is the problem with formal education. It formalizes the whole process of what we expect that particular person to be able to achieve in whichever direction we think they are best suited to.
Yes, I have this syndrome with Pavlov's dog when I begin to saliva when I hear politicians and scientists telling me things that I feel very strongly aren't true. Which is an interesting point, and we do. We fortunately there is a safety valve within mankind, and that we do have people who are critics and look always searching for the truth. and hopefully a sufficient number of the population will, and the voters as well, because they now become very important. They will be able to distinguish between people with really good practical ideas to solve problems and people who are just all mouth and talk.
Yes.
And that's a hard fact of life where we stand at the moment.
Mm.
So maybe there's hope. Do you think there's hope?
There's more than hope. I try to dissuade people from thinking about the concept of either dreaming or hoping, or even having an aspiration. What I look at is vision. And the difference between vision and all the others is that you are perceiving that which will be as if it's already happened. Kind of like in a parallel time scale or a parallel dimension. So rather than aspiring to it, hoping that it will happen, praying, wishing, having desire, these are aspects of ourselves that are real, but they often get in the way of something actually happening as a result of response to a greater order. If we're balanced, then we're in order. Then we can resonate well with the outer order. When we're not balanced, that's when we start hoping and having dreams and aspirations. Because if we know how it works outside, our part in life, not only for humans and within societies, but for life, is to resonate with life. And what I call, the term I use is, instead of being busy trying to find ourselves and what we see life to be, because when we're children, we're socialized. When we go into schools, they are socializing agents, the educational institutions. So we can't wait to break away from any of that and try to find who we are in the first place. And often that's quite difficult to begin to do when you're already 18 or 20. Because so many foundation programs are set. So rather than encourage wild, anarchic responses to social institutions and socializing agents, I try reflecting to people the other side of things. And say, for example, let us consider how life is by seeing it through its eyes and hearing it through its ears, rather than just being so reactive due to the fact that we've been imprisoned by the morals, values and ethics of our family and our society and or whatever.
Yes, so
is it making any sense?
Yes, and well, of course, instead of displaying all the scars and having all the crutches,
yes,
and all the self-evident behaviour patterns of a difficult past we might have led, make sure that that difficult path has made us stronger and better people. And also, most important, and I think this is how I see your view, is that we actually learn to plug into the intelligent and responsive universe.
Absolutely and exactly.
Thank you.